Okay. I do love the R5. Oh, it's whatever. Alright, so what I want to talk about now is embezzlement. In the United States right now, there are a myriad of embezzlement schemes that are active at every level of government. What is especially troubling is that it's just so status quo that no one is really paying attention. We're talking about enormous amounts of money. Because the number of local municipalities that are exploiting contractor embezzlement schemes, and then the county governments and the state governments, and obviously the federal government and all the agencies within it. But essentially, what's going on is money is being allocated for, a publicly popular reason, or it's being sent to local government by the federal government. Then it's being committed to projects that are being selected for their use in embezzlement. So, like here, it's a bunch of playgrounds that keep getting demolished and rebuilt. So what they're able to do is bloat the cost of the construction and the demolition, and then create arrangements with the contractors where money gets kicked back. This becomes really obvious, like in the county here, we have some playgrounds that have been reconstructed up to 14 times in the past, since 2000. 14 times. Another thing is demolishing and reconstructing buildings, almost identically the same, coming up with justifications why buildings need to be demolished. Because what happens there, right? So the public coffers then have to pay for the demolition. If you have a relationship with a contractor that provides demolition, it's difficult to come up with a good estimate of the cost of demolition. And if you create a cartel of contractors, then they will fix the price of the demolition for you, and in exchange, in a part of a quid pro quo, they'll make sure that the embezzlement scheme is able to be perpetuated as long as they're included in it. It's a very quid pro quo transactional economy, but the problem is when projects are only being done for their convenience to embezzle the money that's committed to them, that greatly decreases government efficiency and efficacy. And you're just seeing it over and over again. Let's try and look into other examples of this. Another example is, security theater, and how security theater allows embezzlement. Let's look at the TSA. They were created to give you the impression that government was doing something, that government cared about you, and that they were fixing the problem. In all actuality, the TSA's objective efficacy is marginal at best, especially in the, non-top tier airports. But, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and a lot of this is like, they're paying all these contractors to certify and train the TSA agents, then all of the uniforms and the weapons and all of that, these are contractors that are making an enormous amount of money. In fact, the majority of these agency budgets now are really going to contractors, and then those contractors aren't employing Americans to produce the projects. They're employing, the Chinese, and they're not employing them directly. They're buying the products from, these Chinese manufacturers and then repackaging them to the U.S. government at wild profit margins. So what that means is that the number of people that are benefiting off of these contractor deals is incredibly small, as opposed to in the previous paradigm where it wasn't considered that bad to have some pork in your agency budget because you knew that it was actually going to be benefiting the American people through the productivity that the American people were generating. And ultimately, what you were purchasing was going to be ensuring the employment of multiple American individuals. This is not the case anymore. Now, all you're doing is enriching the billionaire class. Even the most secret and supposed to be exclusive manufacturing project in the U.S., the F-22, F-35, that ended up having so much, offshoring and outsourcing that the Chinese were able to manufacture the F-35, F-22 within a couple years when it took the U.S. trillions of dollars in decades. Way to go, profiteering class. You just took away U.S. military supremacy, something that we spent probably about $100 trillion on. That's provable and traceable. And you gave it to the Chinese to profit a couple extra $1 million on each project. And these are people that are worth billions of dollars. I mean, they sold out the United States to legally embezzle a couple $1 million on each project out of, quite literally, the American middle class's pocket. And in exchange for, military supremacy given to the Chinese. The Chinese bought military supremacy for pretty much nothing. For just a profit-sharing deal with the billionaire class. Access to their labor and industry, access to their insulation on environmental laws and their insulation on labor laws, but still, the laughable thing is, in China, you're going to get better buying power from their minimum wage than you would get in the United States. You'd at least get some housing out of the deal. The billionaire class needs to start accepting that they are the winners in this society and stop sucking the blood and soul from it. And start investing in the society that elevated them to their status, rather than pretending that it was justified and they are some higher species, because they are not. Look at Jerry Jones. He's a moron. And finally, that is becoming apparent. These are talentless people that have just been placed in their positions because of the absurdity of this version of capitalism. So we need to stop believing that they are talented in the way that they want you to think they are. Someone that is that talented doesn't need to invest so much time in telling you how talented they are. Elon. And, we can go on and on and on. It's just that whole mentality of being incredibly untalented, but having an amazing ego. And so when those two things don't rectify, you just bullshit. You just make up stuff. And if you have the agency and the financing, you buy it, and then you, with the money, because this is a system that has been so indoctrinated to believe that, financial wealth is directly proportional to your value as a person. So in that paradigm, people are very prone to believe Elon's insane story of, genius and such. And on and on and on, all these people, all these very wealthy people that are only in their position because they were born into it, love to reinforce the narrative that their wealth somehow affirms their talent and supremacy. And in America, it is very, 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 very well inserted into the social dogma that is true, that monetary wealth is directly associated with value as an individual. And that has been at the effort of, the MAGAs and the megas and all those lunatic people that just prove with every breath that they are not the superior creatures that they like to pretend they are, but because the majority of the country has been so poorly educated, so intensely indoctrinated, and so effectively stupefied, the absurdity and the vanity isn't particularly apparent to the general public. So, the United States general public is, they've been victimized greatly, and but they have a lot of culpability in this situation. They've continually chosen what's comfortable. They've chosen what's comfortable over and over again. They've been told more or less that what's comfortable is right. And then So, that's how this weird Christian awakening has happened, is that people want to believe that they're going to die and be able to hang out with all their loved ones as long as they just do one thing, which is whatever the Pharisees say. But it's simple, and at the end, they get the greatest payout. I mean, they keep getting told it's the greatest payout ever. And eventually you just have to believe it because you're so invested. I'm just hoping that I'm reaching some of those people before they're too invested and can convince them that just because it's convenient, just because everyone says it, just because it's fluffy and nice to think that you'll live forever with all your relatives and friends and everything will be happy, all the problems will be solved. It's just not true. I mean, as comfortable as it is to believe that when you die, all the problems will be solved, all your friends will be there, all your favorite relatives, and you'll all have a zero-stress, awesome time. Well, okay. Let's say it is true. How are you sure that that is in any way correlated with the people that are exploiting you financially, intellectually, and sexually? Look deep into the Bible and you'll realize that it's something that you should be having as a one-to-one relationship. It is not supposed to be something that can be used to exploit you. That the whole passion of the Christ scene is about rebuking the Pharisees, opposing the established religious order, because the only reason that you would seek to ascend the established religious order is to exploit your power. And the idea behind Christianity is that there should be no inspiration to exploit your power, because it will only lead to misery for yourself and everyone around you. And if your Christian leaders don't realize that, if they don't realize the benefit of charity and generosity, if they're accumulating wealth rather than sharing it, if they have a bunch of people within their community or even outside of it that are in need, which is everywhere, and yet they have a propensity to buy expensive things without any real need outside of the luxury of having them, well, those are certainly charlatans. I mean, they are certainly charlatans. If you actually believe in the word of Jesus, you would never accumulate a large amount of wealth before those around you also were living in a similar degree of comfort. It just wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to do it. I couldn't do it. So the idea that these holier-than-thou preachers living in their castles are somehow righteous Christian prophets is absurd. Please realize that that is the exact same thing as the government embezzlement. And be aware of something called projection or projecting. A lot of these narcissists will project on other people their own thoughts and their own aspirations and their own goals as a means to conceal them. They also like to ethically hijack people, because that makes it impossible for the people around them to leverage their unethical behavior against them, because they enlist those around them. And religion is an excellent way to do that. Essentially, modern Christian religion is just a vehicle for sociopathy and narcissism and sexual assault. I mean, if you believe in Jesus, you shouldn't be gravitating towards a social network that is really only there for exploitation. It is very difficult in America right now, especially outside the major cities, to really function without the assistance of a religious community, because, well, at this time they have been weaponized against everyone that's not complicit. It's a really brutal thing. eventually we'll start getting into my personal story with this, because it is real gross. Just be aware of the embezzlement that's going on everywhere. Whenever you see something that's constantly getting tore down and rebuilt, oh, you got a lot of embezzlement going on. Even if it's in private industry, if it's in a church community, anything. If something keeps getting demolished and rebuilt, that's embezzlement. That's a hallmark of it. Hallmark of it.